Welcome to Peaceful Horizons. Life is a journey full of experiences. But not all individuals we encounter will be kind-hearted. Some may carry negative intentions or exhibit harmful behaviors that can disturb our inner peace. But how can we tell the difference between those who wish us well and those whose actions may cause harm? Recognizing the subtle signs of such individuals is essential to safeguarding our own emotional and mental well-being. In this video, we'll explore how Buddhism's wisdom can offer insight into identifying harmful people and how to protect ourselves from their influence. Through personal experiences and timeless teachings, we'll look at key traits to watch for and understand why it's so important to stay alert and focused on nurturing our own peace. Whether you're seeking to strengthen your awareness or simply navigate challenging relationships, this guide is designed to help you understand the behavior patterns of those who might threaten your tranquility, and how to manage them in the healthiest way possible. So let's dive in and discover how to stay grounded and peaceful, even when surrounded by negativity. 1. They enjoy others' misfortune. One of the clearest signs of a bad person is their enjoyment of others' suffering. They lack empathy, showing no concern for the pain or struggles of those around them. Instead of offering support or compassion, they may mock, belittle, or even celebrate when someone faces difficulties. This behavior reveals a deep-rooted cruelty and a complete disregard for human decency. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. But some individuals are emotionally disconnected and incapable of feeling genuine concern for others. When they witness suffering, they might react with indifference or even amusement rather than sympathy. This is often a sign of narcissistic or sociopathic tendencies. A historical example is Joseph Stalin, the Soviet leader responsible for millions of deaths through purges and forced labor camps. He reportedly showed no remorse for the suffering he caused and even joked about the deaths of his own citizens. His lack of empathy allowed him to make ruthless decisions without hesitation. Some people actively enjoy seeing others fail. They may gossip about someone's hardships, spread rumors, or undermine others to ensure their downfall. This behavior is particularly evident in toxic work environments where certain individuals sabotage their colleagues to gain an advantage. A modern example is Bernie Madoff, the infamous financier who ran a massive Ponzi scheme. He built his wealth by deceiving thousands of investors, many of whom lost their life savings. Despite knowing the devastating impact of his actions, he continued to exploit people for personal gain, showing a complete disregard for their suffering. People who enjoy others' misfortune often use ridicule as a weapon. They may make sarcastic remarks or cruel jokes at the expense of someone who is struggling. This behavior is not just a form of bullying but also a way for them to assert dominance and feed their own ego. For example, former media mogul Harvey Weinstein used his power to exploit and manipulate others, particularly women in the film industry. When victims tried to speak out, he dismissed them, mocked their claims, and used his influence to silence them. His actions demonstrated not only a lack of empathy but also a twisted enjoyment of his victims' suffering. Several psychological factors can explain why certain individuals take pleasure in others' misfortune. Insecurity is one of them. Some people feel better about themselves by tearing others down. Power and control is another factor. Watching others struggle gives them a sense of superiority. Finally, a lack of moral values allows them to exploit others without guilt, as their ethical compass is weak. If you encounter such individuals, it is important to avoid engaging with them. Giving them attention only fuels their toxic behavior. Set clear boundaries and don't allow them to manipulate or disrespect you. Surround yourself with positive influences, as being around empathetic and kind people can help counter their negativity. 2. They manipulate others. Manipulation is a subtle yet powerful tactic used by certain individuals to control and influence others for their own benefit. These people use a range of methods, including playing on emotions, twisting words, or invoking guilt to gain power over others. The primary goal is to get what they want, often at the expense of others' well-being. One common tactic is emotional manipulation. A manipulator might feign vulnerability or act helpless to elicit sympathy, convincing others to take action or make decisions that benefit them. For instance, a manipulator might pretend to be in distress, using their needs as a way to draw someone into their emotional web. This can leave the victim feeling obligated, questioning their own emotions, and unsure about their ability to trust their judgment. A historical figure who exemplified emotional manipulation is Adolf Hitler. He manipulated the emotions of the German people by playing on their fears, frustrations, and desires for national pride. Through powerful speeches and promises of a better future, Hitler gained widespread support, ultimately leading to disastrous consequences for millions. His manipulation was so effective that it blurred the line between truth and propaganda, leaving people emotionally drained and caught up in his ideals. Another common manipulation tactic is the use of guilt. Manipulators often make others feel responsible for their well-being, actions, or happiness, placing unnecessary pressure on them. They might say things like, "If you really cared about me, you'd do this," or "You always let me down when I need you most." This creates a sense of obligation, making the victim feel like they're failing or not measuring up, even when they're not at fault. A contemporary example of someone using guilt for manipulation is Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. Putin has consistently used a mix of nationalistic rhetoric and guilt-driven narratives to maintain his grip on power. He frequently taps into the collective memory of past Russian hardships, convincing the public that they owe it to their country and history to support his policies, even when they may harm ordinary citizens. His tactics create a sense of loyalty, often leading people to overlook or rationalize actions that undermine their own interests. These manipulative behaviors can leave victims feeling confused, dependent, and emotionally drained. Manipulation thrives in situations where the victim is isolated or lacks emotional support. The manipulator's ability to control the narrative makes it difficult for victims to see the truth of the situation or trust their own instincts. They often end up relying on the manipulator for approval, validation, or direction, further entrenching their dependency. Recognizing manipulation is crucial to breaking free from these harmful dynamics. Understanding that manipulation thrives on vulnerability, guilt, and emotional control can help individuals protect themselves and set boundaries with those who seek to exploit them. 3. They always want to be in control. People who have an overwhelming need to control others often feel insecure when they cannot dominate every situation. Their sense of self-worth is tied to their ability to manipulate outcomes, and they constantly seek power to maintain a sense of superiority. This craving for control can manifest in different ways, from dominating conversations to dictating how others should behave or think. A notable example of someone who seeks control at all costs is Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea. Kim Jong-un's regime is built on maintaining strict control over both the people of North Korea and his own inner circle. Any deviation from the regime's rules is met with severe punishment, including imprisonment or worse. His need for control stems from the fear of losing power, which he perceives as essential to his identity and stability. In such a system, any challenges to authority are swiftly quashed, often through manipulation and fear. This desire to control can create an environment of constant fear, where individuals act out of self-preservation rather than genuine loyalty. When things don't go their way, people who seek control often resort to deceit or emotional abuse. These individuals may manipulate the truth, distort facts, or create false narratives to maintain dominance. Deception becomes a tool to bend reality in their favor, often leaving others questioning their own perceptions. Emotional abuse also plays a role in maintaining control. They might belittle others, undermine their confidence, or use guilt to ensure compliance. This behavior can be particularly damaging, as it erodes the emotional and mental well-being of those around them. Donald Trump, the former President of the United States, provides another example of a person who exhibits a desire for control. Throughout his political career, Trump has frequently been accused of using manipulation and deceit to control narratives and maintain his influence. Whether through exaggerations or deliberate misinformation, Trump has often shaped the discourse to benefit his own interests. His tendency to refuse responsibility and shift blame reflects a need to remain in control, even when faced with challenges. This desire for dominance is evident in his combative rhetoric and the way he seeks to undermine any opposition, often through attacks on personal character rather than engaging in constructive debate. People who need to be in control create an environment where others feel small, confused, or powerless. They don't tolerate dissent or different perspectives, which can lead to a toxic dynamic where people are afraid to speak up. Over time, this can damage relationships, erode trust, and leave victims feeling emotionally drained. Their actions are not driven by genuine concern for others but by a deep-seated insecurity that can only be addressed through dominance. Understanding this behavior is crucial for recognizing and protecting oneself from falling under the sway of someone who thrives on control. 4. They constantly disrespect others. People who habitually disrespect others often do so to assert their sense of superiority. This behavior reveals deep-rooted arrogance and a complete lack of respect for people. These individuals look down on others as a way to elevate their own self-worth. By belittling others, insulting them, or undermining their opinions, they attempt to create a power imbalance in which they are seen as superior. Their actions often stem from insecurity, as they seek to boost their fragile egos by putting others down. A notable example of this behavior can be seen in the actions of Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. Putin has often been accused of disregarding international norms and disrespecting world leaders, especially those from democracies. For instance, his public mockery of opponents, both within Russia and abroad, shows a clear attempt to assert dominance and superiority. Whether it's belittling journalists, insulting political adversaries, or dismissing the concerns of other world leaders, Putin's actions illustrate a lack of respect for those who do not align with his views or authority. By undermining others, he seeks to elevate his own image and maintain control over his position of power. His disregard for the opinions of others signals not just arrogance but also a deep-seated desire to assert dominance. Another example is Donald Trump, who, throughout his presidency and beyond, exhibited behavior that constantly disrespected others. Trump's style of communication often involved mocking opponents, disrespecting the media, and insulting people who disagreed with him. His use of derogatory nicknames for political adversaries, such as calling Hillary Clinton Crooked Hillary or referring to various countries as shithole countries, demonstrates his habit of undermining others to create a narrative of superiority. This constant disrespect not only alienated people but also served as a tool for asserting control over the political landscape. Trump's need to belittle others showcased an arrogance that reflected his belief in his own invincibility and a disregard for the value of diverse perspectives. This constant disrespect is not only damaging to relationships but also toxic to the broader environment. When someone consistently undermines others, they create a culture of fear and insecurity, where people are afraid to speak their minds or voice their opinions. It fosters an atmosphere where people feel insignificant, as if their contributions are not valued. The arrogant behavior of those who disrespect others often goes unchecked, making it difficult for others to stand up for themselves. Over time, the damage done by such constant belittling can lead to a breakdown in communication, trust, and collaboration. Ultimately, those who habitually disrespect others are often driven by an internal need to feel superior. But in doing so, they alienate those around them. Whether in political circles, corporate environments, or personal relationships, this behavior leads to an imbalance of power and the erosion of mutual respect. 5. They lie and deceive. Individuals who lie and deceive often use dishonesty as a tool to manipulate situations in their favor. They frequently tell lies, ranging from harmless, small falsehoods to elaborate deceptions that can have significant consequences. The core of this behavior is a desire to control the narrative and shape perceptions, often for personal gain. These individuals may pretend to care about others or pretend to be something they are not, all while hiding their selfish motives. A clear example of such behavior is seen in Bernie Madoff, the infamous financier who orchestrated one of the largest Ponzi schemes in history. Madoff spent years deceiving investors by making them believe they were making significant returns on their investments, all while using new investors' money to pay returns to older investors. His lies were not just small falsehoods, they were large, complex deceptions that affected thousands of people, causing billions of dollars in losses. Madoff presented himself as a trustworthy, caring individual, even while hiding his fraudulent activities. His lies were so deeply woven into the fabric of his business that they allowed him to maintain control and grow his scheme for decades, making it one of the most devastating financial deceptions ever. Another example is Elizabeth Holmes, the founder of Theranos, who deceived investors, patients, and doctors about the capabilities of her company's blood testing technology. Holmes repeatedly lied about the accuracy and effectiveness of the technology, convincing people that she had developed a revolutionary product that could change the medical industry. She portrayed herself as a passionate innovator with the best interests of her clients at heart. Yet her true motives were driven by ambition and the desire for personal wealth and recognition. Like Madoff, she used deception as a tool to manipulate the people around her, creating a false image of success while hiding the fact that her company's technology was fundamentally flawed. Holmes's lies ultimately led to criminal charges and the collapse of Theranos. But her deception had far-reaching consequences, affecting the lives of countless individuals. In both cases, the individuals were able to maintain their false narratives for extended periods due to their ability to manipulate the perceptions of those around them. By pretending to care or displaying false humility, they were able to gain trust and influence, which they then exploited for personal gain. These lies and deceptions not only damaged the individuals involved, but also created ripple effects that hurt countless others. From employees to investors to the public. At its core, the act of lying and deceiving is about power and control. By distorting reality and hiding true intentions, those who deceive create a false sense of security, allowing them to continue their manipulative behaviors without facing immediate consequences. However, the truth often comes to light, as it did in the cases of Madoff and Holmes, and the eventual fallout can be catastrophic. Deception may provide short-term gains, but in the long run, it leads to a loss of trust and credibility, leaving a trail of broken relationships and destroyed reputations. 6. They only think about themselves. People who only think about themselves are primarily driven by their own needs and desires, often to the exclusion of others. Their self-centered behavior leads them to prioritize their interests above all else, including the well-being of those around them. This type of individual is rarely concerned with the feelings or needs of others. And they often expect to be the center of attention in any situation. Relationships with such people tend to be one-sided, as they demand support, affection, and care but offer very little in return. A prominent example of this self-centered behavior can be seen in Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States. Throughout his political career and public life, Trump has often been criticized for putting his personal interests above those of others. Whether it was his approach to international diplomacy, where he frequently prioritized America's interests over global cooperation, or his treatment of political allies and opponents alike, Trump's behavior often reflected a focus on his own gain. For instance, during the COVID-19 pandemic, his early actions were largely focused on minimizing the crisis's impact on his image and re-election campaign, rather than addressing the immediate health needs of the public. His leadership style often involved making decisions that would benefit his own political standing, sometimes at the cost of the broader population's well-being. In the realm of celebrity culture, Kanye West serves as another example of a person who tends to focus solely on his own needs. Known for his outspoken nature and grandiose sense of self-importance, Kanye has often been accused of disregarding the needs and feelings of those around him. His controversial public statements and actions, such as interrupting Taylor Swift's acceptance speech at the 2009 MTV Video Music Awards, exemplify his tendency to demand attention and recognition, regardless of the situation. While Kanye's talents and success are undeniable, his behavior often seems to suggest that his personal ambitions and ego come first, even at the expense of others' dignity or feelings. In relationships, individuals who only think about themselves tend to be emotionally demanding while offering little in return. They may expect constant validation, praise, and attention, yet they struggle to provide the same level of emotional investment in others. This creates an imbalance, where the other person in the relationship may feel drained, unappreciated, and neglected. Famous figures like Kim Kardashian, although celebrated for their business acumen and public influence, have also faced criticism for focusing on their personal lives and careers while seeming to neglect the emotional needs of their loved ones. In her relationships, especially during public breakups, her priorities often appeared to be driven by career success and public image, rather than mutual respect and emotional support. The self-centered nature of such individuals can cause lasting damage to both personal and professional relationships. Their inability to consider others' perspectives or feelings often leads to misunderstandings, emotional strain, and a lack of true connection. Although their behavior may sometimes be masked by their status, wealth, or influence, the underlying pattern remains: they consistently place themselves and their desires above all else, leaving those around them feeling used and undervalued. Ultimately, relationships built on self-interest are unsustainable and often crumble when the lack of reciprocity becomes too evident to ignore. 7. They exploit others' kindness. People who exploit others' kindness are often seen taking advantage of the goodwill and generosity of others without ever reciprocating. These individuals know how to manipulate the kindness of others for their own benefit, whether it's financially, emotionally, or by gaining trust. What makes their actions particularly damaging is the lack of gratitude or any desire to give back. Instead, they continue to take and take, leaving the exploited party feeling drained, betrayed, and unappreciated. A classic example of such behavior is Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. Musk has often been criticized for leveraging the loyalty and dedication of his employees without offering adequate compensation or benefits in return. Many workers at Tesla have reported long hours and stressful working conditions. with little to no acknowledgement of their efforts. Musk has also been known to downplay the importance of employee contributions while basking in the success of his companies. While he may contribute to certain causes, the underlying message is that his kindness or generosity often comes with a very self-serving motive. His actions reflect a pattern of exploiting others for his personal gain, whether through his company's financial success or by leveraging the public's affection for his innovation. In the world of politics, Vladimir Putin is another example of someone who has exploited others' kindness for personal and political gain. As the president of Russia, Putin has consistently used the trust and loyalty of his people to further his own power. He has employed propaganda and nationalism to keep the public on his side, while simultaneously using political opponents or foreign allies as pawns to further his geopolitical agenda. Putin's government has been accused of using the country's resources and the loyalty of its citizens to benefit his own political empire, all while silencing critics and disregarding the needs of the people he claims to represent. On a more personal level, individuals who exploit emotional kindness are often seen in toxic relationships, where one person manipulates the other's feelings for their own benefit. Harvey Weinstein, the disgraced Hollywood producer, is an example of someone who exploited the kindness and aspirations of others. He preyed on young actresses, offering them opportunities in exchange for sexual favors. These women trusted Weinstein in hopes of advancing their careers, only to be manipulated and used for his own pleasure and power. Weinstein's abuse of his power left many victims feeling humiliated, violated, and used for his selfish desires. When people exploit others' kindness, they do so without ever intending to offer anything in return. They may pretend to be caring or empathetic, but these gestures are often empty, intended to manipulate others into doing their bidding. This lack of reciprocity can lead to resentment and mistrust, creating a cycle of emotional and financial exploitation that leaves victims questioning their own worth. Over time, this behavior damages relationships and erodes the trust that is essential for healthy, mutual connections. 8. They don't care about consequences. People who don't care about consequences often act recklessly, ignoring the potential harm their actions may cause to others. This kind of irresponsibility is not limited to personal relationships but can extend to business, politics, and even social issues. These individuals may be so consumed by their own desires, whether it's for power, wealth, or personal gratification, that they fail to consider the impact their behavior has on others. The disregard for consequences can lead to severe outcomes, including the destruction of relationships, financial ruin, or even harm to entire communities or countries. A well-known example of this behavior can be seen in Donald Trump, the former president of the United States. Trump's decisions, particularly during his time in office, often seemed to disregard the long-term consequences of his actions. One example is his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, where his public downplaying of the virus and the promotion of unproven treatments led to confusion and chaos. His refusal to take the pandemic seriously not only undermined public trust but also contributed to thousands of unnecessary deaths. This kind of negligence highlights a broader pattern of disregard for consequences, as Trump often made decisions that prioritized his political agenda over the well-being of the American people. Another example is Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, whose business practices have often been criticized for putting profits above the welfare of his workers. The company's treatment of its employees, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic, is a prime example of this disregard for consequences. Amazon faced multiple accusations of unsafe working conditions, lack of proper protective measures, and exploiting workers' time and energy. In an effort to keep up with the overwhelming demand, Bezos continued to push employees to their limits, resulting in serious mental and physical tolls. The harm caused to the workforce seemed insignificant in comparison to the company's bottom line, highlighting how Bezos's focus on growth and profits overshadowed the consequences for those who made his empire possible. On a more personal level, Kanye West has demonstrated a similar pattern of disregarding consequences. His controversial statements and erratic behavior have alienated fans, business partners, and even friends. For example, his public support for controversial political figures and his anti-Semitic remarks led to lost partnerships with major companies like Adidas and Balenciaga. Despite the damage to his reputation and business, West continued to act in ways that seemed to prioritize his personal beliefs over the broader impact on his career and relationships. His actions have not only affected his own future but have also harmed the livelihoods of people who depended on him for their careers. People who don't care about consequences are often blinded by their own goals and desires. They may not recognize or may ignore the collateral damage their actions cause, leading to long-term, sometimes irreversible harm to others. Whether it's in politics, business, or personal relationships, this irresponsible behavior can have far-reaching implications that affect not only the individual but those around them. 9. You feel uncomfortable around them, feeling uneasy, anxious, or exhausted around certain individuals is a strong sign that something may not be right. Often, this discomfort stems from the subtle energy these people give off, which can be draining, overwhelming, or even hostile. This sense of unease isn't always something that can be pinpointed immediately, rather, it's an instinctive feeling that something is off, signaling to your subconscious that you're in an unhealthy or unsafe environment. People with negative energy, whether due to manipulation, deceit, or toxic behavior, can affect your mental and emotional well-being in ways you might not even realize at first. A good example of this kind of discomfort can be found with Harvey Weinstein, the former Hollywood mogul. For years, Weinstein exerted his power in the entertainment industry, but many who interacted with him felt an underlying sense of discomfort, even if they couldn't immediately pinpoint why. His manipulation of women and overall aggressive behavior led to an environment of fear. Several actresses and other industry professionals have spoken about the discomfort they felt when interacting with Weinstein, even before his actions became widely known. Their intuitions were telling them that something was wrong long before the full scale of his abuse became clear. In many cases, those who did speak up or act on their discomfort faced harsh consequences, making it difficult for others to take action on their own feelings of unease. Elizabeth Holmes, the founder of Theranos, also exemplifies how a sense of discomfort can be tied to deceptive behavior. Many people who met Holmes in the early days of her company felt uneasy about her. Her overly confident demeanor, combined with her insistence on controlling the narrative, created an atmosphere where those around her often sensed that things were not as they appeared. Despite her outward charm, Holmes used her influence to manipulate people into believing in her company, all while hiding the fact that the technology she promised didn't work. Those who trusted her and felt an uneasiness in her presence were right to listen to their instincts. Holmes eventually faced criminal charges for defrauding investors and patients, revealing the danger her manipulative behavior posed. In the political sphere, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, also gives off an aura of discomfort for many people around him. His actions, including his control over the Russian government and his involvement in foreign conflicts, create an environment where world leaders and citizens alike feel a sense of unease when dealing with him. Putin's aggressive tactics, silencing of dissent, and manipulation of the media have led to a growing sense of discomfort not just within Russia, but globally. Many international leaders have expressed anxiety when interacting with him. as his unpredictability and hidden motives make it difficult to trust him. The unease that we feel around certain people is often our subconscious signaling us to pay attention to potential harm. Whether it's the fear of manipulation, exploitation, or deception, listening to that discomfort can help us avoid dangerous situations. Our intuition, though often ignored or brushed aside, can be one of the most powerful tools we have in protecting ourselves from harmful influences. 10. They mistreat animals. Cruelty toward animals is a serious warning sign of a deeply troubled personality. People who engage in this behavior often display a lack of empathy, compassion, and a general disregard for the well-being of others. This kind of behavior isn't just a random act of aggression, it's a reflection of a violent, heartless nature that can extend to people as well. Animal cruelty is frequently linked to a pattern of harmful and abusive behavior toward vulnerable individuals, making it a critical red flag for anyone who comes across it. One infamous example of someone who displayed violent tendencies toward animals is Michael Vick, the former NFL quarterback. Vick was involved in running an illegal dogfighting ring, where he subjected numerous dogs to extreme abuse, including hanging and drowning those who didn't perform well. This revelation not only shocked the nation but also painted a disturbing picture of his character. Though Vick eventually served time in prison for his actions and claimed to have turned his life around, the incident left a lasting impression about how his treatment of animals mirrored his lack of empathy and the potential for violence in other areas of his life. It highlighted how cruelty to animals is often tied to deeper psychological issues that, if not addressed, can lead to harmful behavior toward others. In a different context, Jeffrey Dahmer, the notorious serial killer, exhibited cruel behavior toward animals during his childhood. Dahmer was known to have killed and dismembered animals, a chilling precursor to his later crimes. His disturbing acts of animal cruelty were one of the earliest warning signs of his violent tendencies, which eventually escalated to the horrific murders of young men. The connection between animal abuse and later violent acts is often clear, as was tragically seen in Dahmer's case. His lack of empathy and his enjoyment of inflicting pain on helpless creatures served as a terrifying signal of the danger he posed to society. The case of Kurt Zouma, a professional soccer player, also highlights the connection between mistreating animals and a person's lack of character. Zouma faced public backlash after a video surfaced showing him kicking and slapping his pet cat. Despite his status as a celebrated athlete, his actions revealed a disturbing side to his personality. The incident led to widespread condemnation, and it underscored how people in positions of power or influence can still exhibit behavior that signals a deeper moral failing. Animal cruelty often goes hand in hand with a lack of empathy and a sense of superiority over the vulnerable. Those who engage in such acts are typically numb to the suffering of others, and this trait can extend far beyond their treatment of animals. This type of behavior can serve as a precursor to even more destructive tendencies, such as manipulation, control, and violence toward people. Recognizing and addressing cruelty toward animals is not just about protecting animals, it's about identifying individuals who may pose a danger to others, as their treatment of animals reflects their overall disregard for life and compassion. Buddhism emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between individuals who are virtuous and those who harbor harmful intentions. The teachings suggest that certain traits can serve as clear indicators of a person's character, often revealing whether they are trustworthy or potentially dangerous. One significant trait in identifying bad people is their inability to take joy in righteous things. This refers to individuals who cannot appreciate or find happiness in virtuous actions or the well-being of others. Buddhism teaches that true happiness is rooted in compassion and mindfulness, and when someone lacks this appreciation, it signals an unstable or unbalanced mind. This is not simply about not celebrating good deeds. but an inability to connect with the fundamental values of kindness and integrity. For instance, powerful figures like Vladimir Putin have been criticized for their apparent lack of empathy in political decisions, often prioritizing power over the well-being of others. This detachment from joy in righteousness could be seen as a reflection of a deeper, more troubling lack of ethical grounding. Another key characteristic is a lack of compassion. Compassion is a core tenet in Buddhist teachings. And when a person shows no mercy in situations where it's necessary, it indicates a cold, hardened heart. The absence of compassion is especially evident when someone exploits or harms others without any remorse. For example, Elon Musk, though a leader in innovation, has sometimes been accused of lacking empathy in his business practices, particularly with regard to employee treatment and public relations. Compassion is essential not only for personal peace but for maintaining ethical and harmonious relationships with others. When it's absent, it points to a person whose moral compass is flawed. Buddhism also stresses the importance of remorse for wrongdoing, highlighting that the inability to feel guilt after causing harm is a sign of moral deficiency. This lack of conscience can often be found in individuals who justify their harmful actions and continue down a destructive path without self-reflection. Donald Trump, for example, has frequently been criticized for his lack of accountability for his actions and words, often deflecting blame rather than showing genuine remorse. Such behavior often signals a disconnection from basic ethical principles and a dangerous disregard for the consequences of one's actions. Another indicator of a potentially harmful person is their refusal to listen to wise advice. In Buddhism, stubbornness and an unwillingness to learn are seen as manifestations of arrogance and poor judgment. This trait is evident in individuals who believe their perspective is the only valid one, dismissing others' input without consideration. Jeff Bezos has been known for his confident, almost unyielding decisions when it comes to Amazon's business strategies, sometimes disregarding advice or concerns from stakeholders, workers, and the public. This rigidity in thinking can be detrimental, leading to misguided actions and missed opportunities for growth and understanding. Finally, Buddhism teaches that these traits, lack of joy in righteousness, absence of compassion, failure to feel remorse, and refusal to heed advice, reflect a detachment from ethics. Such people may appear outwardly successful or charming but are likely to harbor dangerous intentions. Buddhist teachings encourage vigilance and discernment, reminding individuals to look beyond appearances and observe a person's actions and behaviors over time. The stories of the scorpion and the turtle, and the poisonous tree, serve as cautionary tales about the deceptive nature of those who may seem trustworthy at first but reveal their true intentions through their actions. In this way, Buddhism provides a framework for identifying individuals who may pose harm, urging us to cultivate awareness and wisdom in our interactions with others. As we wrap up today's exploration, remember that recognizing bad people is more than just a protective measure, it's a pathway to preserving your peace of mind and emotional well-being. Buddhism teaches us that awareness is the key to understanding the world and those we interact with. By observing carefully and seeing beyond surface-level appearances, we can avoid placing our trust in those whose intentions may not be pure. Keep your distance from individuals who consistently exhibit negative traits. Don't let manipulation through flattery or deceit cloud your judgment. Cultivate compassion, but always guard against having your kindness taken advantage of. Develop wisdom, as this will guide you in identifying those who are truly trustworthy. At the end of the day, not everyone is deserving of your trust. Life is too short to allow negativity to infiltrate your inner peace. Protect your mind and life by living with awareness and wisdom. Trust yourself to make the right choices, and always be vigilant in protecting your peace. Thank you for joining us on this journey toward a more mindful and peaceful existence. Stay tuned for more insights. And remember, peace starts with you.